So today I have seen the movie Halloween Ends, which was released in theaters and also Peacock. Now, personally, I've never seen the movie because I didn't actually do Halloween movie reviews. But this is going to be the first for me because this is a movie where we finally get to see the final battle between Laura versus Michael Myers, the serial killer, which we finally get to see Jamie Lee Curtis battle the serial killer for the final time, which is the end of the series. Which this movie does have a lot of kills, and I cannot wait to see how this movie actually ends. Whether Michael Myers live or die, or rather return, of course. But we see how many kills actually have. So here is the movie. What the movie begins with Halloween night that actually in 2019, where a young man named Corey Cunningham is actually babysitting for the parents who are Mr. and Mrs. Allen, which he's babysitting Jeremy, their son, which of course they actually go out to a Halloween party. Who his mother talked to Corey about Michael Myers, the serial killer, by which they actually decided to watch TV by watching a horror movie, which is The Thing from the 1980s, which Jeremy is not afraid. So we see how Corey decided to get a snack until he heard Jeremy in trouble. So he actually trying to find him, by which he have actually died that Jeremy was actually getting hurt, which he actually have gone over to the attic. But it was all a prank, which Jeremy had locked him in, knowing that he's finally kicking down the door, trying to break out with his parents on their way back home, which he kicked the door open, not knowing that Jeremy is outside by the door, and he was kicked over the railing to his death, killing him in the process. And he's the first victim to actually been killed, as which his mother blames him for killing his son. But it was actually clear of manslaughter, which he is actually the pariah of the city of Haddonfield, which, of course, 3 years later, after the events of the 2008 movie to the 2021 movie, of course, knowing how Laura, who actually was surprised by Jamie Lee Curtis, who wrote a memoir about the events that actually happened during Michael Myers' killing spree, which of course actually have a throwback of all the victims of him. So now we see how Laurie taking care of Allison, her granddaughter, who's now a strain of Laurie because of the fact that Karen was killed by Michael, which they actually have a new house, in which we see Corey now working at the scrapyard with his stepdad, knowing how he gone back home, drinking chocolate milk from his past, while he actually been hurt by bullies from high school, even though he's in his 20s, which the bullies, Terry, Billy, Stacy, and Margot, who actually bullies him, and he was injured by the fact that they keep calling him a psycho, which he broke the glass, knowing how he was cut after Laurie drove him off, which Corey had popped the wheel of Terry, who he's driving his father's car, which they actually drove to the hospital where Allison worked, which they have bonded over the events, which of course they repair his injuries, knowing how his mother doesn't approve, which caused him to drove over to the Halloween party, which Allison first declined, but she decided to head over, not knowing how Jeremy's mother came to him in the past, knowing how she blames him for Jeremy's death, in which Corey gets mad at Allison for what happened, even though she's also a victim of Michael, and he actually has similar paths of her. That in which we see how Terry and his group have actually appeared, which they approached him as we see how they wanted to apologize, knowing how they won't make up that easy until they push him over the bridge, afraid, which they say that he fell over. But he was dragged into the sewers by a mysterious figure, which he woke up knowing how Allison is actually felt angry at what happened, but he was actually approached by Michael, who is living in the sewers for 4 years, in which he grabbed a hold of Corey by the throat, in which he sensed something inside of him, a darkness that actually symbols of what he sees himself in Corey. So he let him go, knowing that he is him when he was that age, in which knowing how James June Courtney is returned as Michael, but we knew how he actually saw in Corey until he actually met with a homeless guy wielding a knife, saying that he is in there. And in the struggle, he actually kills the homeless man in the process, which he is the second victim in the kill, in which he apologized to Allison after Corey become a little more like Michael after he told her about Jeremy, which they have made it to the Allen's abandoned house now, which is actually an amazing house in the first place, which he told him about what have happened. Then which we see how Laurie, who's seen her, seen him and Michael, but we knew how on a dinner date, we see how they were talking about leaving, but they were approached by Allison's ex-boyfriend, Doug, who was a police officer who began harassing them about Corey being a psycho babysitter, which of course we see Corey lure Doug into the sewer, where they both gang up on him, Corey and Michael anyway, which Michael kills Doug with an old knife, which he's the third victim to go, where we knew how they've actually made up in bed later the night, which I'm not going over the details, but he picked up his old Halloween mask from the party, which we see how Allison didn't get the promotion, in which the nurse have gotten the promotion, which of course she actually has the affair with a doctor, which of course Corey and Michael decided to team up to get revenge for Allison, which she didn't ask in the first place, decided to kill the doctor and the nurse while they're actually at home, becoming the fourth and fifth victim in the kill radius. Then, which we knew how they, which Corey and Allison, still talking about going to leave the city, knowing how their past traumas is still brought up. That is when Willie the Kid, the radio DJ, is actually come out, knowing that they're talking about their passes. That is when we see how Laurie still convinced that he is still have Michael, which he mimics all of his behaviors. Then, which we see how in Halloween night, Halloween day, we see how he dragged him over to the Ellen's house after an argument with his mother. He actually was forbid by Laurie to leave with Allison, knowing of the fact that everything that has happened, in which we knew how Corey say that he blames her for the events that happens all over in the city, and also declares that if he cannot have her, then no one will have her. That in which he went back over to the sewer where he needs something from Michael, which of course is mask. So he actually defeated him and got the mask, not knowing that Michael have actually stood back up because he's not going down, and began his rampage, which Laurie and Allison argue about what has happened, and which she blames her for Michael's actions, knowing that she wanted to leave the city. Which that day we knew how the bullies got what's coming to them, where they're led to the junkyard where Corey kills them, which first happens to be Billy, the drummer, who is the sixth victim, then run over Margot in the fence with a truck, then came out with a wrench to kill Stacy, who is the seventh victim, which Terry, who actually came over to help Corey's stepfather, but he was killed accidentally, making him the eighth victim, which he disappeared and attacked him from behind when he tried to help Margot. Then he killed him with a flamethrower, which put it in his mouth, making him the ninth person. And of course, Margot, even though that she tried to defend him, she didn't actually do nothing to stop the bullies, which she became the 10th victim when he stomped his head. That in which he continued his rampage by killing his mother for all the abuse that he suffered from her, which she is the 11th, as well as the receptionist, the assistant at the radio station become the 12th, and also the DJ, really the kid, became the 13th victim, which we knew how Laurie, who actually faked a suicide attempt after going through an alcoholic depression, which we knew how she killed herself. But not really, she didn't go to the kill count because of the fact that she shot a pumpkin, but she shoot Corey, knowing how she saw how he fell out on the steps, but then we knew how he stabbed himself in the neck, tried to blame Laurie for his death in front of Allison when she picked up the knife, blaming her for what happened, in which we see Michael appeared, got his mask back, and killed Corey, who is still alive, by snapping his neck, making him the 14th victim, which Laurie and Michael are actually in a battle, which we see how she able to pin him to the table and removing the mask and slashing his throat. But Allison appeared after he tried to strangle Laurie and breaking her arm, killing him in the process, and finally avenging Karen's death. But Frank, the sheriff who's in a relationship with Laurie, knew that Michael is dead. But they take him back to this junkyard where the citizens of the city have actually followed her in the process of killing Michael into the shredder, which that everyone is relieved that Michael is finally dead, knowing how everyone who actually was terrified by him is finally over. Which we see how Laurie and Allison have made up after the argument and still have a relationship. With that being said, she leaves the city, and now Laurie finished her memoir, which she said that the nightmare is over, but evil doesn't die. It's changed its shape, just like how Michael is the shape, and still continue her relationship with Frank, knowing how the movie ends with Michael finally being dead after all these years. Now, I actually enjoyed the movie, even though it actually has mixed reviews. But the movie where Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers actually have an epic battle where we see how they finally have defeated him, but we knew how this would actually mean that she actually have killed her nightmare for good. But we knew how the movie only has 14 victims. 14 victims, which of course, Michael being the one in the kill count finally. But I'm actually enjoying this movie, even though I don't do horror movies reviews. But this is actually an exception. But this could actually be incredible to do one, which hopefully gonna find a favorite one that I actually enjoy. So I hope you guys enjoy my first horror movie review as well. So anyway, like this video, subscribe for more, and comment what you think about the review. The movie review. You guys can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and my Facebook page and Twitch. Until then, this is Anime Guy Journey here saying sign out. Laters and be safe.